Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive. Today we're tackling something a lot of you have been asking about, a broader idea of wealth
Yeah.
that goes way beyond just, the dollar signs. I'm really excited to dig into this book with you.
Okay.
It's called The Five Types of Wealth by Sahil Bloom, and it's all about crafting like a truly rich life.
I think what's really cool about this book is that Bloom actually kicks it off with this very personal wake-up call, kind of a challenge to that societal scoreboard that's so focused on money. And it really opens up this whole new perspective.
Right, because it's not like every day that
Huh.
you have a casual conversation with a friend
Right.
and it turns into a whole book. So tell me more about this wake-up call that he had.
So Bloom's talking to a friend about how often they see their parents.
Okay.
And his friend kind of jokingly, does some quick math
Yeah.
based on average lifespans. And he's like, you've probably only got about 15 more visits left with them.
Wow, that would make anyone stop and think. That even that simple calculation
Yeah.
makes you rethink your priorities.
I think it really highlights that time, especially with those closest to us,
Yeah.
is finite. And that realization really pushed Bloom to question everything. Is he actually spending his energy on what truly matters? Or is he just chasing, kind of those traditional markers of success?
So this conversation is like the catalyst for the whole book.
Mm-hmm.
He realizes there's more to life than,
Right.
climbing the corporate ladder or having like a huge bank account. There are other forms of wealth that we often overlook.
And that's where he kind of lands on these 5 distinct types of wealth.
Okay.
And each of these contributes to a truly rich life, regardless of your bank balance.
Okay, I'm hooked. So let's break down these 5 types. First up, we've got financial wealth, but I have a feeling that Bloom's take on this goes
It definitely does.
beyond just having, a fat bank account.
Absolutely. He emphasizes that financial wealth is more about having control.
Yeah.
And freedom, it's about having the resources to make choices that align with your values, not feeling trapped by financial constraints.
So it's not necessarily about, being a millionaire, but about having enough to pursue your passions, to support your family,
Right.
to live comfortably
Yeah.
without constantly stressing about money.
Exactly. Imagine being able to take that dream trip. Or, start that business you've always wanted. Or simply have the peace of mind of knowing you can handle unexpected expenses. That's financial freedom.
It's interesting how this first type of wealth already connects to the other areas of life that Bloom is going to explore.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, the next one on the list is time wealth, which feels especially relevant after that wake-up call.
Time wealth is about being the architect of your own schedule. It's about minimizing those I have to moments and maximizing those I get to moments.
So instead of feeling like you're always rushing
Right.
from one obligation to the next, you're intentionally choosing how to spend your time,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's, with loved ones, pursuing hobbies, or even just enjoying some guilt-free relaxation.
Exactly. Think about how much richer your life would be if you could confidently say no to things that drain your energy and yes to things that light you up.
Now that you mention it, I'm realizing that there are definitely some have-tos in my schedule
Yeah.
that I could reevaluate. What about social wealth? How does Bloom define that?
So social wealth is all about the depth and quality of your relationships. It's about having those front row people, your inner circle of close friends and family who are there for you no matter what. But it's also about, nurturing those wider connections that enrich your lives.
There's that saying, it's not about the years in your life, but the life in your years. Feel like having strong social connections really brings that saying to life.
Absolutely. And Bloom actually highlights the impact of social connection with this really cool anecdote about Mark Randolph, the co-founder of Netflix.
Okay.
So imagine building one of the most successful companies in the world and still prioritizing a weekly dinner with your family no matter what.
Wow, if the co-founder of Netflix can make time for family, we all can. It's a powerful reminder that even the most driven individuals
Right.
can find a balance between ambition and personal connection.
It shows that success doesn't have to come at the expense of your relationships. You can have both.
All right, 2 more types of wealth to unpack. Let's talk about physical wealth. I'm guessing this is about more than just hitting the gym or fitting into a certain size.
You're right. Physical wealth for Bloom means having a body that allows you to fully experience and enjoy life. It's about feeling energized and capable, not limited by aches, pains, or fatigue.
So it's about being able to, hike that mountain with your kids, or dance the night away at a wedding, or travel the world without your body holding you back.
Right.
It's about having the physical capacity to embrace all that life has to offer.
And Bloom doesn't prescribe a one-size-fits-all approach here. He acknowledges that everyone's journey with physical wealth is unique. It's about finding what works for you and building sustainable habits that support your well-being.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not about striving for some unrealistic ideal, but finding a balance that makes you feel good in your own skin. Okay, last but certainly not least, let's dive into mental wealth. What's Bloom's take on that?
Mental wealth is about nurturing a curious and engaged mind. It's about constantly seeking growth, expanding your knowledge, and finding purpose in what you do.
So it's about always being a student, embracing challenges, and constantly pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. I love that perspective. It makes wealth sound so much more active and dynamic.
Absolutely. Think about it this way. Imagine feeling mentally sharp, engaged, and constantly finding things that spark your curiosity. That's mental wealth in action. It fuels your passions. It keeps you adaptable and allows you to lead a more fulfilling life.
I'm really starting to see how these 5 types of wealth are interconnected. They're not separate compartments,
Right.
but rather, different facets of a well-rounded and fulfilling life.
Exactly. And while Bloom defines each type separately, he emphasizes that they all kind of work together. Building wealth in one area often spills over into the others.
It's like they create this positive feedback loop, each type supporting and amplifying the others. But it's one thing to define these types of wealth, it's another to actually cultivate them. Bloom doesn't just leave us with definitions, does he?
Definitely not. That's where the book gets really interesting.
Yep.
He provides a ton of practical examples and strategies to help us build wealth in each of these areas.
Perfect. In the next part of our deep dive, let's explore those specific examples and actionable insights. What are some of the strategies from the book that really stood out to you?
Welcome back to our deep dive into the 5 types of wealth. So we've unpacked the 5 types, but now it's time to go beyond definitions and get into some of those practical strategies.
I love getting practical. So Bloom doesn't just tell us, what these different forms of wealth are, but he gives us a toolkit for actually building them.
Exactly. And one of the most intriguing tools that he offers is the idea of a life raiser.
Right.
It's basically like a guiding principle, a clear statement that helps you make decisions that align with your values and your goals.
So if my life raiser is, say, prioritize experiences over possessions, then anytime I'm faced with a decision, I can kind of ask myself, does this choice support that principle?
Precisely. It's like a filter for opportunities. It helps you cut through the clutter and focus on what truly matters. And here's the interesting part. Your life raiser isn't static.
Oh.
It can and should evolve as you grow and change.
No, it's not about adopting, some prepackaged mantra.
Right.
But it's about creating a guiding principle that feels authentic to you.
And your values. And remember those anti-goals we talked about earlier? They can actually play a key role in shaping your life raiser by clearly defining what you don't want.
So it's like saying, okay, I know I want to prioritize experiences over possessions, but I also know I don't want to take on so much debt that it restricts my freedom.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our choices have consequences. And sometimes a win in one area might be a loss in another. Anti-goals help us make more holistic decisions that consider all 5 types of wealth.
This is already making me think about, my own decision-making process. Bloom really gives us a framework for being more intentional with our choices.
He really does. And that intentionality is especially crucial when it comes to time wealth, which we touched on earlier. One concept that stood out to me is Bloom's exploration of Kairos time.
Kairos time. I remember that term. But refresh my memory. What makes it so special?
You know those moments that feel charged with meaning? Not just like another item on the to-do list, but those times when everything seems to click. Maybe it's like a deep conversation that shifts your perspective, a spontaneous adventure that creates a lasting memory, or even just a quiet moment of reflection that brings you clarity. Those are Kairos moments.
I'm getting chills just thinking about some of those moments in my own life. It's like time takes on a different quality, a richness that you don't get from just going through the motions.
And Bloom challenges us to be more aware of those moments, to savor them, and to actually create space for them in our lives. It's not just about managing time efficiently, it's about experiencing it fully.
This is making me think about how often I'm so focused on getting things done that I miss those little moments of magic that make life so special. I think a lot of us can relate to this idea of, running faster to stay in place that Bloom talks about.
It's like we're on this treadmill, constantly trying to keep up with the demands of work, family, life in general. But we end up feeling exhausted and never quite feeling like we're getting ahead.
It's like that feeling of being perpetually behind, constantly playing catch-up. Bloom argues that this feeling often comes from scattered attention.
Right.
And failing to prioritize.
What truly matters.
Exactly. It's not about working harder. It's about working smarter. It's about identifying those high-leverage activities that will actually move the needle in our lives and letting go of the rest. This reminds me of Parkinson's Law, which Bloom mentions. Work expands to fill the time allotted for it. If we give ourselves, endless to-do lists and unrealistic deadlines, we'll always feel rushed and overwhelmed.
That's a great connection. And that's why Bloom emphasizes techniques like batching tasks, setting clear boundaries, and even delegating. It's about creating systems and structures that allow us to be more intentional and effective with our time.
So it's not just about saying yes to the right things, but also saying no to things that drain our time and energy.
And Bloom breaks it down even further by suggesting that we focus on developing 3 key skills when it comes to time wealth: awareness, attention, and control.
Okay, let's break that down. What does he mean by awareness, attention, and control?
So awareness is about recognizing how precious and finite time is. It's about savoring those kairos moments we discussed earlier and being fully present in the experiences that we choose to have.
So it's like that wake-up call Bloom got from his friend, reminding him that our time with loved ones is limited.
Exactly. And attention is about choosing what you focus on. It's about minimizing distractions, single tasking instead of multitasking, and being intentional with where you direct your mental energy.
That's so relevant in today's world, where we're constantly bombarded with notifications and digital distractions.
It is. But Bloom offers some really helpful strategies like creating a flow state boot up sequence.
Okay.
It's basically a ritual to prime your mind for deep work. Maybe it's dimming the lights, putting on some calming music, diffusing a certain scent. It's about consciously designing an environment that promotes focus.
It's almost like setting the stage for optimal mental performance.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. What about control? How does that relate to time wealth?
So control is about making conscious choices about how you spend your time. It's about saying no to obligations that don't align with your values, setting boundaries with work and technology, and creating space for the things that truly matter.
So it's about taking ownership of your schedule and not letting it be dictated by external demands or other people's priorities.
Exactly. It's about living a life by design, not by default.
Bloom really offers a completely different way of thinking about time. It's not just a resource to be managed. It's a key ingredient in a fulfilling life.
And remember, building time wealth is an ongoing process. It's about making small adjustments, experimenting with different strategies, and finding what works for you. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about social wealth. We touched on this earlier, but what really resonated with you in that section of the book?
The image that stuck with me is Bloom's concept of front row people. These are the individuals who would be sitting in the front row at your funeral.
Wow, that's a powerful visual.
Your closest friends and family, the people who truly matter. And Bloom emphasizes that these relationships require active effort and intention. They don't just happen, they need to be cultivated and prioritized. It's about making those phone calls, scheduling those coffee dates, and being present when you're together.
It's about creating space in our lives for those meaningful connections, even when we're busy. Bloom also makes a distinction between earned status and acquired status.
Ah, yes, that I found really fascinating.
Acquired status is all about those external markers of success, the fancy car, the designer, clothes, the impressive job title. It's about what you own or what you've achieved.
It's that, keeping up with the Joneses mentality that Bloom cautions against.
Right, that constant striving for external validation that never quite satisfies.
Exactly. Earned status, on the other hand, comes from your character, your actions, and the impact you have on others. It's about the respect and admiration you gain by being a good person, contributing to your community, and building genuine connections.
So it's not about what you have, but who you are.
Right.
And that kind of status is far more meaningful and enduring.
It's about building a legacy of kindness, integrity, and positive impact, rather than chasing those fleeting markers of success.
Okay, so we've got front row people, we've got earned status. What other practical advice does Bloom offer?
For building social wealth, one technique he suggests is the helped, heard, or hugged method.
Okay.
When someone comes to you with a problem, instead of jumping in with solutions or advice, ask them, do you want to be helped, heard, or hugged?
I love that. It's about meeting people where they are and providing the kind of support they actually need. in that moment.
Exactly. Maybe they just need a shoulder to cry on. Or maybe they're looking for practical solutions. This simple question can completely change the dynamic of a conversation and deepen your connection.
It's such a simple yet powerful way to show empathy and build stronger relationships.
And Bloom reminds us that building social wealth is about being present, being generous with our time and attention, and showing up for the people who matter most. It's about nurturing those connections that bring joy, meaning, and support to our lives.
Bloom's insights on time wealth and social wealth are really making me rethink my own priorities and how I'm investing my energy. But we still got 2 more types of wealth to explore. In the final part of our deep dive, we'll delve into physical wealth and mental wealth, and we'll wrap up with some key takeaways from Bloom's book. Stay tuned. And we're back for this final part of our deep dive into Sahil Bloom's The 5 Types of Wealth. We've covered time wealth, social wealth. We even dug into those practical tools like the life raiser and the helped, heard, or hugged method. But there are 2 more pieces of this puzzle we need to put in place.
Right.
Physical wealth and mental wealth.
I think it's interesting how Bloom approaches physical wealth. He really steers clear of those unrealistic societal standards and instead focuses on feeling good in your own skin and having the energy to truly experience life.
Yeah, that's refreshing, isn't it? Because so many of the messages out there are about how our bodies look.
Right.
Instead of how they feel and function.
Exactly.
So what are some of his key takeaways when it comes to physical wealth?
He emphasizes consistency over intensity, so focusing on building sustainable habits. Rather than chasing quick fixes or trendy diets, it's about finding a balance that works for you and prioritizing those foundational elements movement, nutrition, and recovery.
Didn't he use a video game analogy to kind of illustrate this?
He did. It's actually brilliant. He suggests approaching physical wealth like leveling up in a video game.
Okay.
So you start at level 1, you focus on the basics, like incorporating a 30-minute walk into your day, eating more whole foods, prioritizing sleep, and then as you gain strength and endurance, you gradually level up. You increase the intensity or complexity of your workouts, you fine-tune your diet, and so on.
I love that analogy. Because it takes the pressure off of trying to achieve,
right,
some unattainable ideal.
Yeah.
And it encourages us to celebrate those small wins along the way.
Exactly. It's about making progress, not perfection.
Okay, so we've got the physical side covered. Now let's dive into mental wealth. This one feels particularly relevant in today's fast-paced, information-overloaded world. So what's Bloom's take here?
Bloom's approach to mental wealth is all about nurturing a curious and engaged mind.
Yeah.
He emphasizes lifelong learning and adopting a growth mindset. It's about viewing challenges as opportunities for growth, embracing new experiences, and constantly expanding your horizons.
So it's not just about accumulating information,
right,
but it's about actively seeking out new knowledge,
yeah,
challenging your assumptions, and constantly evolving your perspective.
Exactly. And one of the key strategies he highlights is creating space for reflection and stillness.
Okay.
He calls this finding your garden.
I love that metaphor.
Yeah.
Tell me more about what that looks like in practice.
So it's about carving out time for those activities that allow you to connect with your inner self and find clarity amidst the chaos. It could be meditation, spending time in nature, journaling, listening to music, anything that allows you to disconnect from the external world and reconnect with your thoughts and feelings.
It's like creating a sanctuary for your mind, a place where you can recharge and cultivate a sense of inner peace.
And Bloom emphasizes that this garden doesn't have to be some grand retreat. It can be as simple as taking a few minutes each day to sit in silence and just breathe. The key is to make it a regular practice, a non-negotiable part of your routine.
I can already feel the stress melting away just thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Bloom also talks about this Japanese concept of ikigai.
Yes, which I found really intriguing.
So for those who aren't familiar, what is ikigai all about?
So ikigai translates to a reason for being. It's that sweet spot where your passions, your skills, and your values intersect. It's about finding that thing that gets you out of bed in the morning, that thing that gives your life meaning and purpose.
That's like that feeling of being in flow. You know, when you're so engrossed in an activity that time seems to stand still.
Exactly. And Bloom provides a framework for identifying your ikigai. That involves asking yourself 4 key questions. What do you love? What are you good at? What does the world need? And what can you be paid for?
That's a great starting point for anyone who's feeling, lost or unfulfilled. It encourages you to connect with your passions, while also considering the practicalities of how you can contribute to the world.
And remember, your ikigai doesn't have to be some grand world-changing mission. It can be something simple, something that brings you joy and a sense of purpose. The key is to find that thing that makes you feel alive.
I'm really starting to see how these different types of wealth kind of all weave together to create a tapestry of a rich life.
Right.
They're not mutually exclusive. They complement and enhance each other.
Exactly. And while we've explored them individually, Bloom emphasizes that it's the interplay between these 5 types of wealth that leads to a truly fulfilling and abundant life.
You know, Bloom covers so much in this book. It's given us a framework for redefining wealth, rethinking our priorities, and creating a life that feels aligned with our values. But before we wrap up, I want to shift our focus back to you, the listener. You know, we've explored so many practical tools and strategies. Which one resonated with you the most? Which one are you going to try out in your own life?
That's a great question for the listener to ponder. And as we close out this deep dive into the 5 types of wealth, I want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question from Sahil Bloom himself.
Okay.
What would your 10-year-old self say to you today about the life you're building?
Wow, that's a powerful one. It challenges us to reconnect with our childhood dreams and aspirations, to really assess whether we're living a life that feels authentic and fulfilling, and to make adjustments if we've strayed too far from those early visions of ourselves.
It reminds us that it's never too late to course correct, to make changes, to chase those dreams that we may have put on hold. Building a rich life isn't about achieving some predetermined destination. It's about enjoying the journey, embracing those kairos moments, and creating a life that feels meaningful and purposeful at every stage.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We encourage you to pick up Sahil Bloom's book, The 5 Types of Wealth, and continue this exploration on your own. Remember, true wealth isn't just about what you have. It's about who you are, how you live, and the impact you make on the world.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, and keep building a life that feels rich in every sense of the word.